I think Phil looked around the names here and recognized many of them. I don't know how well he knows all of you. Some of you he may know really well. He said that he doesn't often wear sleeves. He said, if I'm going to wear sleeves, I'm going to wear a tie. I remember we had...
Recording in progress.
Thank you. Okay. We had at the Women's Executive Session a person who does the diving?
Jeremy Stein.
Jeremy Stein. He said that if I came in my work business attire, I'm becoming in a wetsuit. So if Phil was here in his work attire, he'll be in trainers, shorts, and a t-shirt, I guess. But Phil, if I was to describe Phil, I'd use the word dedication. He's absolutely dedicated to fitness and wellness. He's worked at some of the leading sports clubs and organizations in the region and has met and worked with some of the best in the industry. He's dedicated to professional development, has helped him achieve numerous awards, including Best Individual Personal Trainer in Vietnam 2021, Strength and Conditioning Coach for Vietnamese Women Olympic Karate Team in 2019. And his organization, Body Expert Systems, has earned awards such as the Best Digital Fitness Program in Vietnam 2021 and Top 3 Digital Fitness Platform in the Asia region for 2021. So Phil, what is it that executives need to do to get fit or keep fit, in your opinion?
To get fit or keep fit?
Oh, okay. Well, well, people like Mizuho needs to keep fit. People like me needs to get fit. So for executives now, what should they be considering when it comes to fitness, in your opinion?
Well, everything is built on a foundation of health. And this is what I think probably the fitness industry as a whole and influencers don't really get across. It seems like fitness is about this thing or this motto of hard is better, do more, just push yourself through it. You know, and that really, if you're stressed out and you're in crisis, it's probably the worst thing you can do, because what you need is to work in and build your strength within before you can actually do anything else. Working out and fitness is another stress on the body. And if you're not capable of recovering from that stress, it then just puts you deeper in the hole. So everything we do never sacrifices health, and everything is built on top of health. So fitness, productivity, happiness, everything, you need to be healthy first, because that's when you feel good. Yeah, and this process of, well, being happy is about feeling good, right? So that's really what we want. So I mean, health in itself, for me, is based on 5 key sort of factors. So I don't want to sort of go over basic knowledge, because I feel that everyone in the audience, everyone we're talking to here is very intelligent.
Can I just hold you there?
Yes.
Can I just ask you online, can you hear Phil okay? Give me maybe a yay or nay, or he needs to be a bit louder. Somebody?
Okay.
Anybody?
No, please, can it be a little bit louder?
Louder?
We are having difficulty to hear you, sir.
Okay. So
Okay,
maybe
no
play
problem.
your voice, that'd be great. Thank you. Phil. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what I say is health is really those 5 things. For me, they're the cornerstones of building health, 5 actions. So the first is to cut the crap. Now that's not me swearing.
Have a what?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So CREP stands for carbonated drinks or chemicals, refined sugars, starches, artificial ingredients, flavors, and then processed food. Okay, so again, in the nutrition realm, people are always arguing vegan, carnivore, paleo, keto, all these diets. But really what they have in common is that all of them cut out the crap. So then it just comes down to what belief system or what suits your lifestyle. But if you actually look at successful dieting, it's not about what you're eating, it's more about what you're avoiding or reducing. All right, so for me, if we think of as nutrition in that sense, it becomes a lot more easy to understand how to eat well. Right? The next would be hydration. Our body needs and cells need to be hydrated to work properly. It helps with detoxification, and obviously living in Asia, we're coming into contact with air pollution, a lot of pollutants all the time. So hydration is a cornerstone as well. Sleep, but I'd probably put this, I say sleep because we're usually a sleep deprived society, especially executives, because we're trying to squeeze more and more things into our day and sacrifice our sleep. But actually, as an end result, it just makes things worse because the next day you're just more tired. So what we need to do is actually focus on rejuvenation processes or actions so that when you wake up the next day, you're ready to go and your brain's working well. Now, probably the two controversial things, the next one is move. Obviously, for health, we need to move our bodies. Our bodies are designed to move. But what you need to focus on is actually building muscle. So when people come and are doing cardiovascular exercise, or this is usually the first choice, right? So I want to get fit. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out. I'm going to go for a run. Right? But it actually creates a hormonal profile. So everything that we do in life, how we act, how we live, how we think, it has a chemical response. So what we're trying to do is actually create a chemical environment that actually promotes rejuvenation, growth, and healing. And prioritizing muscle is extremely important. And I'll give you a stat. So what we're looking at is longevity now. And actually, I should point out that how do you define health is going to be different for everyone. So technically, health is just the absence of disease. But I want to ask you this. Health for me, as I want you to picture this in your mind, is how do you want to live the last 10 to 20 years of your life?
Some of us are already living.
So we can ask. This is true.
And he's living it. Yeah.
Do you want to spend the golden years of your life in a doctor's office, taking medication, in pain, and tired all the time? So for me, health is really how do you define the last 10 to 20 years of your life? These are the golden years, right? We've spent our whole life working, time to enjoy it. You're doing pretty well, by the way.
We sat in next to you for a few.
So my question is, people see health as in different levels, right? They'll look at me and assume something, they'll look at someone else, and how we define health is the most important thing. So my question to you is to answer that. How do you want to live your life in the last 10 to 20 years? And that will give you a good concept of what you need to do to establish a happy lifestyle to achieve that. So as an example, so why I say muscle is if we look at all-cause mortality, we take not strong versus strong. Strong is 3.2-fold more protection. Yeah. So not strong, you have 3.2 times more likely to avoid all-cause mortality. Yeah. If we look at just sedentary to active, you're looking at 5 times, a 5-fold improvement. So if we take that into contrast, we all know how bad smoking is for our health. Yes. That's a 1.4 deterioration, reduction. Okay, so you can smoke. The smoker who exercises will outlive the non-smoker who doesn't exercise. Right? So this is how important exercise is, but to also choose the right form of exercise. And that form must be pushed towards resistance-based movement.
Okay. Building muscle, is that
building muscle. So when we're building muscle, we're also working in a full range of motion. So our joints working in full range of motions. We're putting stress on the bone, so the bone density increases, the connective tissues involved. You're able to work on improving your function, so improving how your joints move. So there's so many benefits to just doing resistance work or trying to focus on building that muscle. And in fact, without muscle, we have no place to actually store energy. So does everyone know so if you have starch, which is then stored in the body as glycogen, so sugar, do you know where that's stored? It's stored in the liver and in your muscles. So if you have limited muscle storage when you eat, there's nowhere for that glycogen, that sugar to go and be stored, so it gets converted to fat and stored. So then you're storing fat. So what they're saying is actually obesity isn't an overconsumption problem, it's an under-muscle disease. So when I say muscle is important, this is something that we really need to change, because everyone will always go for cardio first. And it's an ingrained thing into our society that I want to get healthy, I'll go for a run. Instead of I'll move my body, I'll crawl, I'll do some push-ups or something like that to improve the function, strength, and actually my movement capabilities. That is a much better focus to move forward with improving your health.
Thank you, Phil.
There's
a question. Yeah, there's a question here from Barbara. If you have any questions online, by the way, feel free to put your hand up or just unmic and ask your question. But Barbara has a question.
Oh,
okay.
what number 5 is.
Oh,
number 5. Oh,
and number 5 now is saunas.
This one?
Saunas.
Oh.
So there's a increasing amount of undeniable research showing that saunas is an exceptionally good practice for longevity. So it's an increase of about 1.4 all-cause mortality risk. Yeah. So it reduces that risk by 1.4, which is a massive number.
Right.
Well, what's the reason?
Yeah.
It's the
cancels
stress.
that smoking.
It's the stress on the brain, the heart. So again, small amounts of stress are very good, but also it sets off chemical behaviors in the body that actually protect the brain from damage. So
Sweat cortisol, probably.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And actually, the one reason that I actually got into looking into saunas was its effect on protecting our brains from Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases. So at the right dose, a sauna can actually reduce your risk of Alzheimer's by 65%. Sauna. It's the numbers are incredible, and there's such a depth of research now. It's hard to sort of deny. And the reason, like, if something came back and said it gave you 5 or 10% reduction in risk, you're like, nah, is it really worth it? You know, it's not going to give me that much more. But when it's coming back saying 65, you got to take note.
Okay. So, Phil, if I could just hold you there a moment. Boris, are you hearing better now?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I heard mostly everything that this gentleman said. It's very interesting. Thank you very much for bringing all of these points to us. Thank you.
Okay. Just so you know, it is being recorded here as well, separate to the Zoom meeting. So you'll have a pretty good high-quality recording later if you miss anything. So thanks, Boris. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, can I ask a question on the sauna?
Yeah, go ahead. On the
So,
sauna, yeah?
Is it kind of once a week, or is it every day? Or
So, great question. So this is a great question, and you have to get the effective dose. And this is the same with everything that we do. There is an effective dose, because again, if you do too much, it's overstressing.
Is to answer that.
creates
How do you want to live your
response.
life for the last
You do too
15
little,
to
it's
20
not giving
years?
that response.
And
So
that will give you a
what they
good
found was,
concept
and
of what you
it's
need
quite
to do
fascinating,
to establish
people were
a
doing
healthy,
10 minutes
lifestyle.
every day, and they found that was only about a 10%
So as an example, so
increase,
why I say muscle
of
is if we look
decrease
at
in
all-cause mortality,
but what we
we
found
take
is
not strong
20
versus
minutes,
strong.
4 times a week,
Strong is 3.2
at
fold.
80 degrees Celsius is the sweet spot.
That sounds like
Can 3 times a week.
Yeah, so that's fairly challenging. If you try it, it'll take a little while for you to adjust. So like anything, when you start something new, work your way in slowly, and then slowly build up the resistance and to that stress.
But on different stages of your life, your metabolism's different.
No, this is actually it's a good question. So what they say is our metabolism slows down 1% every year after 30. Now, what they didn't tell you is that that's only if you do nothing. Right, so this is the problem with research. I can find and prove anything in research, but if we actually look at the study and see what was the cause, so if you stay active, your metabolism doesn't die. Okay, if you eat properly, metabolism is strong. Yeah, so this is a bit of science and a bit of misleading information. Like it is true, but it only reduces if you do nothing. So if you're active and you're maintaining muscle in particular, your metabolism will stay strong.
Phil, for the same metric, so I mean, you spoke about hydration. How you always say let's have 2 liters a day or something. But obviously, if you're 20 minutes in the sauna, you're going to
You're
need a
gonna
bit
need
more.
more, that's right,
But,
that's
but also with sleep, well, what's the, is it 8 hours, 7 hours, or is it one loaded up Xanax?
Well,
weekend?
this is
So the
yeah.
question is
Just
about
keep the
sleep.
sense.
Is that right? That's about sleep. Is that correct?
That's-
Well, just but
Yeah.
how long? You know, what's the average?
Yeah.
What's
I'm
the
repeating
kind
the
of-
question because the microphone's on this side of the room, and so I'm just making sure everyone can hear. So the question was about sleep. Is that correct?
So it's about
And-
volume.
and
I thought that was
volume
a
of sleep and volume of
It is.
water.
Yeah.
How much water? How much sleep? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, Phil.
So it was the effective dose of sleep.
Yeah, not the Xanax.
Or the effective dose of Xanax.
5 milligrams.
I mean, sleep is really now a super hot topic. There's a guy all over Facebook, and Instagram, social media talking about sleep, and the detriment of poor sleep is incredible. So this is why it should really be one of the most important things to us. How much per person is again an individual thing, but what we would recommend is a minimum of 7 to 8. It used to be we were getting 9, 10 plus. And I mean, I myself don't sleep enough. So I'm getting 5 to 5.5 hours and I feel it. But what you can do is you can catch up. So if during the week you get a night where you can have a little bit more sleep, you will reset that clock. So it won't keep accumulating if you then have a night of good sleep. Okay, but it's not a good idea to have less. So what I would say is for sleep, because again, if you're tired, you're not going to be as productive. It's in this ever-ending loop of on time, go do this work, go do this work, go do this work, go do this work. So I stay up later to do it. Then the next day I wake up and I'm even more tired and I can't be productive as I would like the next day. So what I would say is go to bed at your normal time. Ideally, the ideal times are
3
around.
o'clock in the morning.
No. the ideal times are around 9:30, 10 if we're talking about a typical circadian rhythm. Because again, our bodies are very closely tied to the circadian rhythm, the magnetic cycles of the earth, the light and dark cycles. So what I would say is go to bed. You should be aiming for about 10. I mean, that is very early. And then if you wake up early, fantastic. You're ahead of the day already, right? But if you're tired, you will go through. So really what we want is every hour before midnight is worth 2. Because this is when our body's natural detoxification processes happen. So if you're going to bed at midnight, 1 o'clock, your body cannot reset itself. It just cannot get the essential mechanisms going. Now a weekend out, this is why. Birthday boy. No, but why? And this is why a weekend out puts you back 3-4 days.
Yes.
I wanted everyone online to know that when Phil talked about a weekend out, he looked at David Jackson. So there you go. Just for transparency here. There you go.
Just because he had his birthday. So
And it was his birthday last weekend as well. So there you go. Okay.
And
So
Phil, how about napping?
I believe it's worthwhile doing. It can help you catch up, but it doesn't replace a good night's sleep. And actually, some research says that napping isn't actually that effective.
Nothing.
Napping, yeah.
Winston Churchill did it.
Yeah,
He won the war.
and society does, but it doesn't beat that one block in your circadian rhythm that allows you to get into our deep rhythm. And again, I've tested all this, so every time I hear something, I try and test it out myself, and then my brave clients step up and test it too. So wearing a heart rate, next time you sleep, wear a heart rate monitor yourself for a month, go to bed at different times and take a look at what happens to your heart rate. So when I was going to bed at midnight, my heart rate would gradually go down and then I'd be in REM for a little bit and then it'd be time to wake up. All right, so I wouldn't get into REM for about 3 or 4 hours. Now, if I went to bed at 9:30, 10, I'd be bang, straight down, right along, and then up. So, and again, so with science and with what I talk about, these are principles to go by, but you still need to find out your individual biochemical response to things. So what we do as coaches is we say, this is the principle, this is the science, now let's see what happens. And we adjust. So just as you go into business, you don't just write out your business plan and say, nope, the plan says this and we're moving forward with A, B, C. You write the plan to give you guidance, you come up against a problem and you adjust. And this is exactly what we need to do when we're looking at our health as well. And that comes down to, again, like time is always a factor. right? Everyone says, I don't have time, I'm pushed for time. But there is never a good time. So you might as well start and adjust along the way.
So Phil, I know a lot of executives. I've been working with executives for about 10 years, and I know how hard it is to run a company. The focus that's required, the sacrifice that's required, I think there's, in our membership, we have a lot of people that work incredible hours, and they must do in order to achieve the results. I've heard it said, I said this to Lynn Tai, that running a business is almost like, or has similarities to raising a child. It needs incredible focus until it becomes strong. But I just wondered, how can somebody who's running a successful business balance, in your opinion, fitness, health, and running a business as well, and sometimes being a family member, husband, father? Any thoughts on how they should start if they're not in the zone right now?
Well, I think that's the thing, right? Like, life is about priorities. So, and like I said, you broke it down into the categories: family, personal, professional. So there's the 4 categories, 3 categories.
Well, social.
Yeah. So anyway, you have these categories. They can't all be. You can't achieve everything all at once. So what's your priority for this stage of life? What time frame do you give it, and then how do you manage that? So you've got to be realistic, but it is about priorities. What do you prioritize right now? And again, if you can't get it done, and this is what good business people do,
Delegate.
to take the words right out of my mouth.
You go to the gym for me then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's always a way. If it's important for you, you'll get it done. And this is, obviously family is very high priority, but if you don't have your health, you have nothing. And let's face it, like I like to call, when people are in, I call it the zombie zone. So you're eating bad food, you're not exercising, so you're groggy, foggy, and tired, right? And I call that the zombie zone. And moody, yeah. You can't make clear decisions. They take you longer to make a precise decision. So you're just this zombie that's wandering around and always behind. Exactly. So why not take an hour? Because when you go back, you're going to be zoned in, and it'll be snappy, it'll be fast. So you're better off looking after your health, getting your thoughts and your brain right, and then going in and being that snappy man.
Yeah, early morning exercise is the best.
Well,
Because you start it for the day.
It depends on
Physical
who,
exercise in the morning before you go to work.
it depends who you are, and I've got some recommendations for that.
Can I just
Yeah,
say
Ken
from
had a
my
question.
personal...
Go ahead.
Well,
Yes,
no,
please.
it's picking up on that point, because I was notoriously bad at exercising. I don't think I exercised at all between the age of 21 and 46 when I had cancer, and that kind of put me on a new exercise kick, and then that gradually tailed off, and then I had another out late every night. What goes with that? But then I really made a determined effort to get fit, and the only way I could do it was by having it in my diary, just like any other business appointment.
Exactly. Yep.
And not, under exceptional circumstances, don't move it. But my secretary was under strict orders. That is just like any other business appointment, and it will not be changed. And that got me into a good routine.
Yeah, exactly. And this is really the only way to do it. Because people think it's easy for me to find time to exercise. They think, it's what you do, it's easy. No. I've got it in my diary, workout. And I sit there some days and I'm like, just start. And it's difficult, but you just get it done. And that's where it goes. So my next point, and I think this is really important, and it ties into hopefully what Ashley will talk about, is that we're actually a society. We're got an abundance. We live in abundance. We've got food anytime. We've got information at our fingertips whenever we want it. Google anytime. You could find out. I could ask you a question. You could find it. You could find that answer. So why, with all this information that we have, are we not acting? And this is I think is a very important question, because a lot of people have come to me and said, I really want to do this, do that, but they don't take action. And how do we get, this is, I think, the biggest problem is actually how do we get someone to start taking action? And I know there's people in this room that have, gone through their own fitness journey from not doing anything to doing something. And I think it's fantastic. And, what joined them to, or made them take that effort, So this is, for me, a big question. It's very individualized. So for me, we have lots of information. Sure, I'm here to make sense of that and show people how to apply it and how it's best applied for their situation and biochemistry. But still, they're the ones that have to take that step. So really, the reason why, again, we've got this epidemic of obesity and Alzheimer's and all these diseases taking place, why are people not taking action?
Phil, there's a reason we've invited you here, because I think it's something that executives need to hear. I was playing devil's advocate a little bit by asking the question.
Yeah.
There's a note here from Simon Pugh. Thanks all, bang on info, Phil. Don't let busy compromise looking after yourself. I wrote something here that you said, if you don't have health, you have nothing. And it's really true. You might hit your target and get the bonus and earn an extra billion dong for the year or whatever it is, but you don't. Yeah. So we have a question here from Luan. Let's open up for some questions. The first question I have in the chat box here from Luan. Hi, Phil. Do you want to ask the question directly, Luan? And mute your microphone and ask him directly. If you can still hear me. Still hear me?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Ask the question.
Hi, Phil. Luan. My question is that is there the differences between normal sauna and infrared sauna, which is increasingly popular nowadays and said to be work much deeper for the body with different function like detox, like muscle build and everything. So do you believe in that stuff? The question.
The difference between infrasauna and
Look, we have for normal sauna, dry sauna.
You speak a little louder, Phil,
Can't
and
bring
this
this
way
over.
because the microphone's on this side. That's the microphone actually for the recording.
Oh,
the microphone
sorry.
for Zoom is over here. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
We have a wealth of research on normal sauna. Infrared sauna is very new, and there just isn't the data to draw conclusive evidence from. But like most things in the fitness and nutrition world, there are some pretty outlandish claims. So sitting in a sauna, it's not going to build muscle. But it will have still definitely has some benefits, but I can't conclusively sort of compare it to dry sauna because it's just not the research yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now Matt Millard, you had a question. Go ahead. Unmute your mic, Matt. Ask your question. Thank you.
Sure. Hello, Phil. How are you, mate?
Hey, mate. How you going?
Good. Very good. Mate, I've got a friend in Bangkok who is doing this Wim Hof method. So every Saturday morning he goes and does the ice bath and the sauna, and he says it's been a life changer for him.
Was it as a nice bath?
And ice bath.
So what's the question, Matt? Just
what are your thoughts on that? Is that like supercharged sauna or what?
Ice baths work very differently to sauna, but there's two different things there. So there's ice bath, and actually Wim Hof is famous for breathing, his breathing techniques, and he's a fascinating dude. If you guys want to check him out, he's amazing. So they put him in a bucket of ice, and he goes into icy water, and with temperature gauges on his fingers, and his temperature doesn't change. Okay, he's in there for a long time, 20 minutes, 2 minutes. His temperature doesn't change because of his breath work. They've injected him with pathogens and his students to see if they would get sick. None of them got sick. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and a lot of it is down to his breath work. So I don't know if any of you know Wim Hof breath work. So you can do this in the morning. It's very simple. It's 30 breaths. Full breath in, full breath out, 30. On the 30th, you breathe out and hold as long as you can. Then breathe in hold as long as you can, and do another 2 sets of 30. Okay, so 3 sets, 30, with a hold at the end of each 30. Okay? So this is about flooding the brain with oxygen, which is exceptionally good for productivity, clearing the mind, because again, you're just singularly focused. So breathwork, and people have a lot of problems breathing. So actually training your breath is exceptionally good for your health. Now, ice baths, there's a lot of benefit there too. So that stimulates your sympathetic nervous system. So that pumps out basically a shockwave of alertness. So testosterone, human growth hormone, adrenaline, all get pumped into the system. And oxygen gets forced into the brain. So again, for alertness, for energy, it's fantastic. For fat loss, it's also amazing. So what it does is we have 3 types of fat in our body. We have white fat, beige fat, brown fat. Brown fat is metabolic. So what ice bathing will do is turn your beige fat into brown fat. So it makes you more metabolically active. And because of this sympathetic nervous system stimulation, it actually moves the fat out of storage and into circulation so that you can actually burn it through movement. So ice bathing is very popular now, and mainly for those reasons. But I'd also say ice bath is actually a practice of doing hard stuff.
I think it's just as effective if you have a sauna gang, or is it German or English? You're going to sauna, into the cold bath, into the cold water, into the sauna, having relaxing. It's getting your metabolism going, getting your like you said, your heart rate up and down, and it protects you apparently from the cold, etc. later. Yeah,
I would strongly advise you not to do a sauna. So excessive heat into excessive cold. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, right? You're asking for a heart attack. So you can go into a pool, but not. You shouldn't be getting into 5 degrees water. So you're doing one or the other, and it's just, and also people are using ice baths can be used for different purposes, for after a workout to stop inflammation. But again, if you're having an ice bath after a workout, you're basically killing your hypertrophy, so muscle building and strength gains. So if it depends on your purpose for why you're doing it after a workout, but I would strongly advise before is much more beneficial.
Phil, thank you for that.
From hot to cold,
we have a question from Stephen. Stephen is the CEO at Hoyana. Thank you for joining us from Hoyana. Steve, you had a question about intermittent fasting. Do you want to ask Phil your question?
Yeah, hi Phil. This is Steve. I was actually late coming on today, so I apologize for that, because I was really, very enthusiastically looking at this particular session and wanted to be part of it. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, I exercise on a daily basis, and I put it in my schedule, and I look at it like I'm meeting the chairman every morning. So it's like at 5 a.m. or 5:15 a.m. and it's really a cardio exercise. And the reason why is not just because I'm trying to stay fit, but as importantly, I suffer with high blood pressure, and I just try and control that. So it's really a cardio, and I would do that at least 6 days a week, if not 7. So I allow myself one day that my schedule doesn't allow it, but my schedule is normally pretty good around 5 a.m. Having said that, one of the things that I think we all struggle with, and I'm in my early 60s, and I have a really high stress level at work, and I do a lot of hours, and because we have a casino within this resort, sometimes I have late nights, and very occasionally I may be asked to join a party that involves a little bit of drinking. So that's the so in order to control my weight, and I'm 194, so I'm quite tall. My ideal weight is 88. So I'm a bit superstitious. So I like the 8s, and I try and obtain that weight, and I can do it through intermediate fasting. Right now I'm 91, and I can do it through intermediate fasting. but my intermediate fasting is very unreliable. So I can do the 16-8 and have 8-hour window to eat, but because of entertaining at work, I may move that 8-hour window from one day to the next. So one day I've got my 8-hour window in the morning and the next day in the afternoon. Does that, firstly, is intermediate fasting something that you would support or you do support? And then secondly, does it really sort of not, it's not that beneficial if you're not really rigid with it?
Yeah, no, I do support intermittent fasting. But we have to understand that this is just one method of achieving the same result as other sort of nutrition plans. So it's not a be all and end all. But there are some very positive aspects of intermittent fasting, which I do like. And yes, you do need to be consistent with the timings. So if you're changing the time all the time, it won't have the effect that you're looking for. And really, you've also got to think about not just your eating window, you've got to think about your fasting window. So if you're having your last meal, say at 7 o'clock, you may not have fully digested that for an hour and a half and not actually entered the fasting stage until 8:30. And that's when we would actually count it. So you've got to, so it's not just the feeding window that we really want to look at. It's the fasting window that's important. But yes, you do need to keep the time consistent to get the best results. But in saying that, oh no, I forgot what I was going to say.
So intermittent
Intermittent fasting
is great in combination with good nutrition, exercise, and
Yeah,
well-being.
but again, you
Good
can
sleep.
achieve it. That's only if someone needs a structure to follow, right? So we can do it in many different other structures. It's not like something that's it's amazing, it's world changing. It's just one way of doing it. Generally speaking, when you restrict your feeding window, you're going to eat about 25% less. So it sort of helps you just reduce the total intake of energy. But the other thing is, if you know, the reason we've got to where we are as a species isn't because we were the strongest. It's because we were the most adaptive. Now, if our body is an adaptive organism, so if you're doing the same thing for a long period of time, your body is going to adapt to that. And that is the same for intermittent fasting. So if you've been doing this for a long, long time, I would also encourage you to come out of it and then do another plan and go back into again. So you don't allow that the body to sort of adapt to that one place. You keep the metabolism working because it's going to start to expect that, and it'll just become the normal stage. Does that answer?
Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it doesn't, obviously without, and I think I knew the answer with regards to keeping on a rigid schedule. It's always a little bit challenging when you're entertaining and all of a sudden you're going for dinner and you're saying, well, hang on a minute, I'm fasting, so I'm just going to sit here and drink water. So that's the challenge. So maybe I need to, look at something that will give me the discipline without the sort of rigidness of a schedule.
Well, I mean, alcohol itself is a potent sugar, so that's definitely going to kick you out of a fasting state. So when we're talking about fasting state, we're sort of more talking about blood sugar levels. So we want blood sugar to be below sort of 9 or so. So 90. So what we want is if you do have to eat foods that won't kick you out of, won't elevate your blood sugar level high. So eat sort of more of a fatty food that might not cause insulin to spike.
Right. I think one last point I just want to add though is that your comment suggested that I drink a lot of alcohol, which actually is not true. I'm quite moderate in my alcohol consumption, but so I don't want the group to be under the misconception that I'm a bit of a drunk, because I'm certainly not.
But
David here.
Yeah. But
we adjusted our notes here, Stephen. Thank you very much. Thank you for letting us know. Yeah.
But I just want to point out that I measure people's blood when we're doing fasting stages and ketosis, and just one drink will throw them completely out of ketosis. Yeah. So
Thank you for the question,
if you're trying to
Steve.
be in ketosis and in the fasted state, then alcohol just throws you straight out.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. How do we contact you if we want to contact you after the meeting? What's the best way to contact you, Phil? By your website? And
Website, and there's a contact form on the website. It's probably
Okay.
the easiest way.
Fantastic. So thank you, Phil, on Facebook.
Yes.
Phil is often in the training room working with clients. He does come back to you after he's done his 3 or 4 sessions in a row, but he will come back to you if you need to contact him. Phil, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
Very impulsive or very paralyzing because you're just only using your thought process to get there. By acknowledging that there are emotions, complicated emotions, most of the time involved in this, then you can make your cognition much more rich, right? Because I understand that there's a lot of stake for me for these other reasons. I know that these are the practical decisions that I have to take. And this is the behavior that I want to be followed by all of this. A lot of our emotions sometimes manifest only in behavior, right? And people like to say, well, I'm not a very emotional person at work. And I'm like, well, but you seem to be angry all the time. And that is an emotion, right? So, and by the way, not a very sophisticated one, because anger is just like, it's a lot of like rampage of nothingness, really. But if the person were able to see how their anger manifests in their behavior and to understand their anger better, meaning what does that emotion informs? For example, a lot of the times anger informs our boundaries. Right? I'm angry because you just crossed a boundary that I don't like. It's not just angry because I'm angry, right? What was that boundary? What do I want to do about that? Is there anything I can do? A lot of behavior is what we don't do. It's not a lot of what we do, but a lot of the behavior that we choose not to do, right? So when you understand that there's a lot of emotion, whether you consider yourself someone highly emotional or not, then you can perfect that trifecta and actually make more informed decisions. Especially true for your interpersonal relationships. When you have a job that it is draining and your day is very full, you will have very little left to give to your interpersonal relationships. So a lot of executives keep it together at work, but then at home, something really small can just spiral a number of things, right? And then this shame storm of I'm not being a good parent, or I'm not being patient with my partner, or I just want to withdraw and I don't want to spend time and I don't want to be present, tends to be one of the reasons that push people into therapy, because they recognize, thankfully, that that is not the life that they want to live, right? And they will come to my office. I think it's funny because I will explain how that is impossible. They will come to my office asking me how not to feel that way, right? It's like, help me not to be angry at my children, or help me not to expect this type of support from my partner. And I wonder when it came to be this idea that we're not supposed to feel. I guess a lot of people grow up in environments that where feelings were not either safe or useful, right? Where feeling was just an impulsive delivery of behavior that in psychology we call dysregulation. That is not feeling, that is just behavior that is dysregulating, showing all kinds of disorganized emotion, which is very unsafe, can make a child feel very unsafe. And you can conclude over time that then feeling, period, is absolutely unnecessary or not useful. So you want to suppress that emotion and you just don't deal with it. And again, if you have been successful in your career, you sort of come to the conclusion that I don't need that in my life. And the moment that is crippling in, I'm going to seek for a psychotherapist that is going to give me some tools to avoid those feelings. And I'm like, well, welcome to therapy. The place where we feel all the feelings, right? And we feel all the feelings in a way that feels safe, right? Like, how do I unpack all this emotion? Perhaps knowing that there is no way forward from them, meaning there are emotions that are not, that we don't have possibility to process, right? But still, we're going to feel them. So we're not going to get rid of those emotions. We have to create a better relationship with those emotions that includes being present and not ended up doing behavior. Again, the doing, skipping the entire thinking part. Doing behavior to just not think about how I feel, which is the default. I want to build, if that's okay, a little bit on what Phil was saying, because another interesting part of emotions is how there is a complete dismiss that these are produced in our brain. right? If you are having a moment and you get put into an MRI, you can see exactly what parts of the brain light up depending on the emotion the person is reporting. So this is actual neurological activity. So an emotion is not something that I made up. What is true is that it is my perception and it is impacted by my experiences in life. But it's not something that is not tangible up in the air, that is not a kumbaya type of thing. So emotions are very real, and they because we experience a lot of those emotion in a form of feeling sensations in our bodies. There are all kinds of ways that we can hack into those emotions and alleviate some of the stress, anxiety. A lot of people experience lack of meaning, for example, feeling very, very, very plain, falling flat, like everything that I do and nothing really means anything at the end of the day. That type of emotion feeling, you can sort of hack into that by maintaining 5 principles in psychology. So I'm just going to copy homework here, right? Just to build on what he said, because I think that now that we have that framework, that could be useful. I would say I'm a pretty intense therapy. Like I do a therapist, I do strive for excellence, because I think that when we have that expectation, we are gonna fall short regardless. So if you just expect people to do very little with their mental health, they will do nothing. But if you really work on, say, these 5 steps, and you try to maintain some basic understanding of why is this beneficial to you, your life can significantly change. The quality of your life can significantly change. One will be accountability, which is cutting all the crap, right? So the accountability is basically the concept of where the focus of control is. You can blame your childhood, your family, your employees, the economy, the pandemic, the weather, the lack of time, the lack of opportunities, and then drown in that self-pityness that can be very well justified, because intelligent people can intellectualize their way into almost any construction of emotion. Or you can say that actually, this is what I am putting in the world, this persona, this energy, and I do have control over that. And I can change that, right? I also have control of, for example, over my negative thinking, which is the junk food of psychology, right? Like, oh, my life is full of negative thoughts because everyone around me is just toxic. Fine, but it is you, the one that is ruminating all this negativity and pushing it away, ruminating and pushing it away, and has engaged in that dynamic where unless things change around you, nothing is going to really be different. So you are effectively at the mercy of your environment. And I personally don't like that. As someone who is like a little bit comfort with control, I don't like that idea. So although the focus of control means that I am going to acknowledge and have accountability on what is my part in this, and that can be A, confronting, and B, stressful, because it can put at risk some of our views, our worldviews, right? All of a sudden, things are not exactly how I thought they were. Like my partner is not, what can my partner be, right? My partner is not angry all the time. Maybe it's me that I keep doing things to piss him off, which is probably true, but he's not in this meeting because I would not acknowledge that, but it's true, right?
But it's being recorded.
And secretly sent to his email address, right? But if I say, like, why is my partner angry at me often? And I say, well, you have an anger issue, then the focus of control is him, not me. Well, if I ask myself, what kind of behavior I continue to repeat regardless of the consequences, and why is that behavior so difficult for me to change? Which is something that a question that you posed earlier, right? Like why people don't do what we need to do. Information is available, we know all these things. One is lack of accountability, for sure, because it's too confronting to think it's me. And the other one would be that a lot of us were never taught how to take care of ourselves, right? So the idea that I have to take control on my life and my thoughts and my emotions, it's really foreign. It's like, where do you even begin with that? And then a lot of people are much more comfortable taking care of others than taking care of themselves, right? So it takes this moment in life where you have to acknowledge that you don't know how to do this. And for someone who has been professionally very successful, and perhaps in other areas as, again, very successful, it feels a bit like a slap in the face, right? That I don't even know where to start with these things. but accountability is one. Another one will be mindfulness, which is building psychological muscle. Again, I'm just copying Phil's homework. So building psychological muscle with mindfulness is not necessarily sitting down and meditate silently, because a lot of people cannot do that, especially if your day is very busy, your brain is very wired, so you're thinking all the time. But some kind of active meditation, because what you want, the psychological muscle, is resilience, is the ability, it's the same with other muscles, right? Is the ability to go up, down, baseline, up, baseline, down, baseline. It's not the ability to not feel. It's how do I manage having a super stressful day and feel all the feelings and go through all my decision making, and then using that bridge of going from work into home to bring my psychology to a baseline where I am present, intentional, where I can deliver the qualities of my personality that I know my family needs. How do I also be real with myself? Like, do I have today the ability to have those qualities presented to my family? Maybe not. So my psychological muscle will be that, well, then I need to do something else in this case, perhaps communicate to my family that today is not the day where I have all this patience and whatnot. So this resilience is not necessarily, I'm going to be always at the top of my game, I'm always going to be happy. That in psychology will be some kind of psychotic disorder. We're never going to be super happy all the time. Like, imagine how that looks like. That Joker in Batman, he's a psychotic that is happy all the time, and look how that looks like, right? So it is really not normal or natural to be high all the time. It's also not okay to be low all the time. But the possibility of coming up and down, and finding yourself a baseline will be your psychological muscle. The third will be sleep, but I think I'm going to use it number 5 because I want to say some other things there. Another one will be the dynamics of your life. This one, you might not like to hear it, but it's just true. If you don't understand who you are and how you came to be who you are, you're going to, from time to time in life, struggle with the exact same problems. Your relationships would end for the same reason. Your conflict is always going to be very similar. Your coping styles are always going to be unhealthy, because the dynamics of someone's life is how the person that I am right here today has to do with the child that I was, the relationships that I have growing up, and the way that I was raised. Why? That was then and this is now, but it's just the way that our brain is built. When we are babies, and I'm not talking childhood, it's just 0 to 3 years, our frontal precortex, which is the thinking part of the brain, is not developed. So we are emotional, right? And in touch with our own feelings, right? You're hungry, you're angry, you feel disgust, you feel excitement, you feel happiness. And all of that is felt in your amygdala, which is in the back of the brain. So that part starts to develop early and consumed all the information from the environment and storage that information. And storage that information very well deep down. And we don't have access to those memories, which is a bit of a design problem of the brain, if you like. I think it's important for a reason, but the problem is that we might be acting on those memories of emotion in an unconscious matter. And conscious only means that I don't have a narrative memory of this, meaning I don't remember what, who, or when, but I just remember this makes me feel uncomfortable, or this type of people don't feel safe to me, or this type of situation are just too threatening for me, and I don't know why. And you gotta know a little bit of why, because it really brings back a lot of a very important sense of control. Not to blame your childhood, it's just to explain it, right? We came to be the person that we are because we have a history, and those histories have experiences, and those experiences might be informing our behavior in ways that we are not aware. So if you ever have the opportunity to have a real nice discussion on your upbringing with a professional that is an experienced psychotherapist, you're going to need a psychologist for this, not a coach, a psychologist, because we are clinicians and we really like the nitty gritty of details of life. Someone who is also perhaps trauma aware, because we all have gone through something, Whether we acknowledge that or we use that word or we resonate with us is different, but no, there's no such a thing as a perfect childhood. So if you ever have the opportunity to work through that with a psychotherapist, I think it's a moment that will enrich your life because it just brings back a lot of control. Your interpersonal relationships will be number 4, which is the fact that our relationships, the quality of our relationships inform the quality of our lives. So you do want to have meaningful, deep connections. You want to have, I guess, a mix of all of that because a group like this, like even while we're talking and having a conversation about these topics, there is a lot of oxytocin, which is the happy hormone, right? We're laughing, we're seeing new faces, we're greeting each other there. We're like taking a time from our very stressful lives to be here with other people. And this is a casual relationship that brings a lot of happy hormones. The stress hormone is cortisol. We have a lot of cortisol and excess of cortisol through the day because we're super stressed out. So you want to have moments where your interactions with others are not full of cortisol. When we are full of cortisol at work, then we go home and we remain full of cortisol because there has not been a way to flush that out of the system. And then you will do more cortisol stuff in your interpersonal relationships. Conflict, arguments, all of those things, if it's your romantic partner, are important because it's through arguments that we understand what needs to be better in a relationship. But it also, I mean, if you reflect sometimes in your interpersonal relationship, sometimes there's a lot of tension and friction. So then those relationships are not of quality, and then any smart person would say, maybe then I don't have to have this relationship in my life, and then you start sort of like avoiding people and not interacting with these people or with people at all, and then when you withdraw, you feel isolated and you feel lonely. And the epidemic of loneliness is one of the most scary things in mental health. We had a little bit of taste of that during the pandemic, but I don't think that it's exclusively through those literally isolation moments that we experience how lonely it could be to not have spaces to share the worries, the fears, the real emotions, to take off the mask of superpower, always have everything together. I know everything into, well, sometimes I'm very scared and I don't have all the answers. Like those connections are very important. I really love what Victor was saying about those groups where you have to sign a confidentiality agreement, because then it allows people who are very high profile to just be. And I think those moments like that are really enriching and sending a really positive message to the culture. Number 5 will be sleep, because you're absolutely correct. Like we went from thinking that you sleep when you die because it's a waste of time into understanding that it's probably the one most important thing. No, you never heard that? My grandma used to say that all the time. You sleep when you die, you sleep when you die. Right? It is the most important practice that you can have. And I understand it's not very natural for a lot of people, but we have to find ways to mitigate bad sleep. Because it's through sleep that you flush a lot of the material in the brain that you find, remember that? That you find on cases of Alzheimer. So it is that not only the brain is very active, but it's actually cleansing during sleep. And you need to sleep at least 8 hours, right? You need to sleep those 8 hours to feel rested, and feeling rested, it gives you more energy. You're flushing all these toxins and stuff, and it really prepares you for a better day. So if you have to change one habit, just the one, I would say sleep, and then eating, movement, and then you build into your psychology.
We actually call sleep the 4th macronutrient. That's how important it is.
Yes.
It's like food.
Mm-hmm.
4 macronutrients.
Protein, fat, carbohydrates.
Okay. So
yes,
thank
those
you.
will be the
So one of the things you mentioned to me in our chat was burnout.
Yes.
Is a massive issue with clients that come to see you.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Any thoughts or advice for CEOs that might be close to or getting burnt out? And how do you deal with or prevent burnout for executives?
How do you define it first?
Yeah, okay. What's the definition of
Well,
burnout? Yes.
in burnout, you experience this detachment from the task that used to bring you a lot of joy, right? I would say that is the main form of burnout. There's a lot of fatigue, and a detachment, or you become very cynical to the problems that once used to give you a challenge at work. In being burned out, you can see people acting in ways that are very impulsive and not in the best interest to the corporation, the company, and whatnot, because you by becoming cynical, then you just make decisions at the top of your fingers that are, because you simply don't care anymore, you're detached. I think that would be how burnout manifests at this level. And ironically, yes, obviously taking breaks and having more, like I said, oxytocin in your personal interactions throughout the day is going to make your life more meaningful. But burnout seems to be mitigated with us finding new meaning and new challenges in what we do. Meaning that if you have been in the same position for too long, or you've been doing the exact same thing for too long, your brain basically has developed resistance and tolerance to it. So it's not interesting anymore, it's not fun anymore, it's not challenging enough. It's a little bit like interfasting, right? Like if you've been doing the same type of or fasting or exercise, if we've been doing the exact same thing always forever, although it feels very comfortable because we thrive in routine, then you just your level of tolerance for it is too high. So you no longer feel it. You're no longer present in it. So you have to have some real conversations within yourself if you're the boss, or within your corporation, or within your organization, into how your role can change in a way that keeps you feeling alive at work. Because it is the thing that we do, hopefully only from Monday to Friday, but it just takes so many hours of our lives that if your job has lost meaning, then it is just a job, right? And you want to have a career, you want to have something to look forward to, and to do so, you're going to have to move some pieces that are going to make you temporarily uncomfortable.
So do you have any steps or advice on what people can do to recover or prevent burnout?
I think that it would be to take meaningful breaks, and meaningful breaks are not necessarily right 2 weeks, because not everybody has that.
You know,
Those 2 weeks.
did you work during those 2 weeks?
No.
Okay,
Still
yeah,
on,
yeah.
still on.
Actually,
Keep me off, it's still on.
it is ironic, isn't it? Because I remember at an event we had just recently, the speaker, one of the speakers said, "I've just been away for 2 weeks," and we all joked that it was obscene that they would do that, and it was a joke. We actually were very happy for her. It was a female speaker, but actually, we I mean, you are employed. It's true when you're self-employed. The laptop's open, you're working. It's and so taking a break is the key. Is that right? And it's putting the phone down, not answering the phone.
Meaningful breaks.
I think it's a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
Going for a run, getting healthy food, getting out of it, different area, different country maybe, and then have a break, get away.
Yeah.
It's meaningful.
Meaningful break.
It doesn't need to be 2 weeks.
Yes, it's whatever is meaningful. If you can have your coffee.
Eat more nuts.
Well, if you instead of eating your nuts when you're answering an email, you take your nuts and you watch the window. You think to yourself, "Today's actually a nice day." Those 5 minutes can help your resilience.
Right.
I also think it's important, and it might be ironic talking to people that are so successful, but have you thought about making a rich life, about making decisions that are aligned with your values, right? If your values is having a life that has integrity and meaning, then is that the life that you're living? And if not, you're going to have to make some changes. And changes are always uncomfortable. So we might not like the idea that in order to have a rich life, I'm going to have to then take breaks, which involves making less money. But then do I want all that money and then a stress headache and then having to overcompensate because I just simply like I think you were saying, like running behind all the time, right? And does that look like a rich life to me? That I'm always like half an hour late to everything and mentally I just am unable to keep up. So that doesn't sound like a rich life to me. So if you have an abundance of time and success, you might want to take a look at that and see what changes can you make in your life to avoid burnout.
That's great. Now,
I think the problem is most of us don't have an abundance of time.
That's true, but that is also could be a problem with the boundaries, right? You really need to cut down somewhere.
I was at a seminar just a couple of weeks ago talking about that, and Marshall Goldsmith, the #1 coaching guru in the world, said that the people that he coaches, and they're the people that run the Pfizers of the world and the boards of the world, these are the people that are earning 400 million a year. They're the richest people. Why isn't they can't afford a bit of time off? They can pay people to do a lot of things for them, and he doesn't. He's a no nonsense sort of person. So I think it's really important for us to realize that taking time out is really, really important.
But they do take time out.
Yeah, I hope they do, and some of them don't. But yeah. So the other thing you mentioned in our chat was imposter. By the way, is there any other comments you have regarding burnout? Any other, apart from taking time out and resting, any other suggestions for burnout?
I would say that let's all do our part in not turning burnout into something trendy, into something that we compete to have. Who's busier, right? Who's busier? Who's more burnout? Like, how many clients do you have? And let's be that subject of change. Again, the focus of control, right? I can advertise that burnout. It's just not. It doesn't give me a quality of life. And yes, you want to give more than what you consumed, and then I personally am in an industry where this is meaningful to me, but I also need to put the oxygen mask first. So it is not cool to have burnout, not at all. And I don't want that for myself, and I don't want that for anybody. So if you are in a position of power, you can also address your team by creating this culture environment in which burnout is not the thing that we do to each other.
Thank you. So one of the other things you mentioned to me was imposter syndrome.
Yes.
People are coming to you feeling insignificant in their work. What are the things that you are noticing from clients that have imposter syndrome, and how do you help them overcome
I think that
it?
When you become successful at anything, you have to acknowledge that there's a level of perfectionism going down, right? Like, you do have attention to detail. You just put your eyes on the prize and you go. And I think those qualities are highly rewarded in our society, and you get a lot of credit for that, and people admire you and look up to that. So whatever brings that level of reward, we repeat, right? So perfectionism, the problem is that in order for everything to feel perfect, then things will have to be perfect. And when they're not, and you're having a moment, it's almost like the entire success that you have your life that you have worked so hard for means nothing when you're having that moment. The first thing that I would say is that moment tends to be temporary, right? Obviously, one mistake or one performance that was not up to your level or your expectation does not erase a reputation in a year and years of experience. But that doesn't seem to cure imposter syndrome, because it's almost like deep down we sort of know that there is something that no one can see, this little like monster that I keep on a closet that is making me, it is because I avoid it, then it doesn't exist. I think imposter syndrome is fed by our coping styles that we know secretly are not healthy, and yet we keep repeating. It's almost like I have this little secret that no one knows. So if they only knew that I am this very successful person that, you fill the blank, that sort of like cripples into your psychology. And when it finds an opening, when you make a mistake, when something is not perfect, it grabs it. And then it's right there. You see, this is the person that you really are. And I'll be in therapy talking to people like, well, that is not the person that we really are. Like, we are many things at the same time in a very dynamic way. But those moments when we feel like the mask is out, everyone saw it, this is a disaster, sometimes people struggle to be in that place of discomfort. And that is what I will call the imposter syndrome at sea level, right? Because when you have enough experience, you kind of know that you belong in the room, which is a fantastic feeling to have. So how does it manifest? I think it manifests in our naughty behavior, right? The things that we keep for ourselves and we will not tell anyone, and we downplay, and it makes us feel ashamed. And shame is a really complicated psychological machine, because it really keeps us from doing what is right for us, because we feel by default that we're inadequate in somehow. Like, this thing that I do is so not acceptable that I'm never going to be able to face it, overcome, so on and so on. So it really keeps us from growing.
So in therapy,
Mhm.
people with imposter syndrome.
Yes.
You've helped people recover.
Yes.
And what has been the result then? They feel comfortable with themselves. What has been the result? I'm trying to understand what it's not for me. I've always been very humbled by my peers and the people that I serve and the people that I'm around. I don't think I've ever felt imposter syndrome. I've always felt.
Have you helped them before?
No, not with this. I don't even know exactly what imposter syndrome is. I assume it is people that feel they should not be in that place.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That they feel that they are not really supposed to be the CEO, the general
Yes.
director, or the speaker here,
It's,
etc.
it's basically thinking that
Yeah.
one day everyone is
Yeah.
gonna discover that I
Yeah.
fake all of this.
Yeah. Okay. So I probably have
So
the
you fake it
opposite.
until you make it.
I probably feel that it shouldn't be me. It should be somebody else. I have the opposite feeling, but maybe
yeah.
that is unhealthy as well. But what is the result then? If somebody comes to you and they're obviously as a CEO here, they've got a big responsibility. Are they acting that position, and how do you help them overcome that?
I think that when you have someone that is very introspective, and again, like you were saying, intelligent people, I don't want to explain the obvious, but intelligent people have a way to assuming everybody think the same way that you do, but no, right? So one of the qualities is introspection, which is the capacity to think about your thoughts, metacognition, right? So someone will come to me and say, sometimes I feel like an imposter, and I know I have the experience, and I know I belong there, and they should even give me more credit for this and for that. But whenever I make a mistake, it feels like a part of me is the inner child, a little me, a part of me that is vulnerable and raw has been exposed. And I know that's not logical. They will tell you things like not logical. I know it doesn't make sense. I know I belong in the room, but I still feel this way. And they will ask me, how do I not feel that way? And then I will say, no, you feel what you feel. Remember. And they say, okay, I remember. Yeah, you're supposed to feel my feelings. But feeling that way, I think what is really healing is to have someone on the other side going yes, that makes sense. When we make a mistake or when we're nervous, we feel like that. Very exposed, very little, very powerless, and that is uncomfortable. I can see that. And that is what vulnerability really is the ability to talk about raw emotion in a safe space and be seen by another person. If you can do that with a therapist, if we can do that with a loving partner, it has to be in a safe environment, right? I don't think that you telling your entire team, I've been very nervous about closing this year taxes, they will freak out. That is not the place for that. This is not, you're in leadership, you have to, they need you to look strong. And you're gonna do that for them, and it's gonna keep this ship going. But on a safe space, meaning someone that is not going to judge you on it, someone that is going to hold space for you and share that human quality. That is very healing. Coming on the other side of that is a great amount of honesty in safe spaces, is the ability to say, this is what I feel, and then everything is fine, right? Like something that, for example, personally, one of my imposter syndromes is that I get nervous before things like this, and depending on the person that I'm meeting in therapy, I just get nervous. And I don't know if it's because I'm tiny and little, but I get nervous and shaky. It's really obvious if someone is paying attention. And I think that it got resolved the moment that I acknowledged that yes, I just get nervous when I consider something very important. And I think that is actually a nice thing to have, right? That I still care.
Before speaking in front of an audience, I used to coach a creative director for a very large multinational company, one of the biggest in the world. He had about 150 creatives under him, and he was award-winning, but he had a fear of public speaking. And there was no rationale behind it. He would be doing a pitch, he'd understand it, but he would just get nervous getting in front of an audience and sharing the information. So let's open up now. We are now at 3:29. We did say we'll finish at 3:30. I'm happy to let this roll for a little while because I'm sure there's some questions. If you need to go, I totally understand. But I'm going to suggest we do another 11 minutes, finish at 20 to 4, if that's okay for those that want to remain. Questions for Dr. Astrid and questions for Phil. Go ahead. Feel free to ask questions. Anybody here or anybody online?
Actually, can I
Go ahead. Go ahead, David.
Just because I see you're talking about imposter syndromes now. Like you mentioned earlier on, myself and Dr. Astrid, we had some sessions together, quite a few years ago now. And actually, I got to say, she changed my life in the way that I think about stuff. Because I think as a man, especially where I grew up in London, I can't comment about women, but as a man anyway, no one really talked about mental health when I grew up. And it was just told to just shut up and get on with it, like, you know, man up, and all these comments. And it's good to counselling, I guess, you know, maybe a very American thing in my mind, but not necessarily, especially in London where I grew up. That doesn't happen. So
Same in New Zealand.
yeah. So, you know, and then I was in a, you know, I had a personal issue that I couldn't, what do we put it here? My thinking emotions weren't in alignment with my partners at the time. And I just didn't have the tools to fix that. And when you talk to your friends, you know, and often guys go to their friends or you have a drink and you kind of try to work out and you're trying to put the pieces of what's going on, but they don't have training. They don't have, they've often got a comment or they're projecting their own emotions onto it or something like that.
You'll see that.
And especially when you're in a, you know, environment where you can't really open up about stuff. So I ended up reaching out to Dr. Aston. I think, you know, I was in crisis, as you put it, right? I mean, I was in big crisis. Actually, what happened is that we worked through it. So if anyone wants to talk, or they're welcome to talk to me, they don't want to talk to what it's like being on the patient side of that, because actually it was very empowering by the end of it. You go through a process and you think about what's going on and how you're doing stuff. You know, and I'm definitely a lot more armed and, you know, capable of dealing with what's going on, because there's things that I didn't understand. And so it came to a thing where I think I'm fairly comfortable now. I mean, it's debatable. But you know, when I go out, I remember after a couple of sessions, and we were talking about, in essence, I won't go too much into it, but something called borderline personality disorder, right? Not from me, but I was also compliant in it because I'm feeding it, and so knowing what you are with that, but literally about a month later, I was walking down the high street and it was like an epiphany, and I worked out why my family did something 20 years before, you know, and you suddenly, it's like the jigsaw of your life comes putting in. And it's amazing how, with a bit of kind of understanding, you kind of picture things together. They're only going to improve in what you're doing afterwards. But to me, it was extremely, changed my life. And so anyone going counselling, don't be embarrassed about it. I talk a lot about it with people. I'm always going, go, because you never know if it's a small change or a big change, because you know.
One thing I like about David, by the way, the first time I met him, he talked to me about that period of your life. You may not remember, we had a few drinks after Kyle and Mira's party at Jasper's. Yeah, okay. And you're very open. And if you ever get to know David one-on-one, he's an open book and there's no bullshit with him. It's just very straightforward. What you see is what you get, and that's what I like. And so thank you for being open. Thank you.
Okay. Just to second what both of you are saying, I too did therapy on 2 separate occasions for 2 different reasons. And it doesn't need to be a long period of time. It's just getting that that safe speaking partner that, you know, you can have conversations with that you don't normally have with other people. But I think one of the things, you mentioned it earlier, right? We are the top athletes of corporate world. And if you look at top athletes, they all have a therapist and a trainer and a massager and someone doing their nutritionist, right? And so if we are the athletes of the corporate world, why are we not giving ourselves that same kind of support? And I'm sitting here saying, well, it's a bit awkward that we don't always have the answers. Well, you know, we don't. Exactly. And you don't get to be Serena Williams if you don't have that support system around you. And so trying to be shy about it, that, you know, we all need help sometimes. And I think that's something that we should let go. If we are top athletes, then let's have a top athlete regime.
Talk to your priest.
Talk to your priest, or talk to your therapist, or find a nutritionist and a trainer, or better yet, get all of those.
5 beers and I'll listen to you.
You're paying, I'm talking.
Oh, you're cheating.
So some good comments there. Are there any questions for Dr. Astrid or Phil?
I've got another one actually.
Oh, you go.
I know this
Yeah.
might be teeing you up for it, but like, you know, if you wanted to get in shape, what could, like, bracelets do you order? What apps are good? Like, is there anything that can track? Like,
Lift some metal.
you know, part of it's to know where you're beginning.
So
and
what,
where
so
you're
what
ending.
tech? What tech
Yeah,
would
well,
you
what sort of tech or what apps would you use to
Well,
track?
I started with Phil about 10 years ago. It might not show, but everybody's on and off. But recently, I mean, is it 2 or 3 years ago you started Zoom Mobility?
Yeah, about 3 years.
So that was a game changer for me because I've been in and out of gyms, different trainers, and nothing really worked. But then when I entered the Zoom Mobility, it was a whole different thing. It was really just something that made me happy.
Okay. What was it that you did that made you that was different? I'm just trying to understand.
When I was young, I did boxing, you know, and there was a lot of jumping up and down, different exercises, squats and so on. But then when you enter a gym and you have a traditional gym training, it's all weights or something like that, it gave me that sense again about back boxing and really moving it to a level where is this what a heart attack feels like? You know,
So I mean, what he's talking about is zoo. It's sort of a movement ideology that we use. So you know, it's a lot like animal movements.
Right.
So a lot of crawling, a lot of mobility, but it works everything at once. So it's making you mobile, it's making you strong, it's making you stable, it's building coordination, proprioception. So you know, this is the sort of thing where I say that you don't have to be lifting weight to be doing resistance exercise. Actually, the metrics for health have nothing to do with lifting a weight. So if you want to be old, the metrics are: can you hold an air squat in these 90 degrees for 90 seconds? Can you dead hang for 90 seconds? Can you get down the ground and get up off the ground within a certain amount of time? So there's no, when we say that strength is important, it's not lifting a bar or lifting a weight, it's moving, the ability to move your body. And that's what strength is. It's the ability to move and control your own body.
I think that you will agree that a little bit of something is better than nothing at all, right? And
Well, the magic actually happens from going from nothing to something. So
that's
that's
actually the most.
Get started.
so if you're just going to go
Get
for
started.
30 minutes walk a day, that's where 70% of your benefits going to be.
I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, when I did those things like half Hindu, I mean, it's just the worst thing I know. But gradually, you know, you just can do then 3, then you can do 4, then you can do 6, then you can do 10, and you slowly feel you're getting stronger, also mentally. Because I did it.
So having accountability, having a trainer is key, I think, to a lot of success.
I think this is
Okay.
maybe what
That's
that's maybe
what
what
I found.
David's question was about tech. What tech would I recommend? And I guess that's sort of using technology as accountability. So you've got your watch there; it's measuring your steps. So your Apple Watch.
Well, that-
My answer is whatever works.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
What do you use?
nothing.
Just listed.
Again,
Yeah.
it's more for me. I don't really, as long as I get something done, I don't really mind. I don't need to be hitting these specific. I mean, look, you can optimize your training by hitting certain heart rate ranges. So we use lower heart rate range to make yourself more efficient at burning fat. Your mitochondria more efficient. So it trains you to use fat as a fuel. We use high intensity so that you're getting a hormonal response. But does it really matter? It matters that you went and did something. Only once you get more into it, would you then, I would say, use those metrics or terms and see what your heart rate, what your recovery rate is, what your resting pulse is. But if we're just looking for general health, none of that really matters as long as you're doing it. So if your Apple Watch motivates you, if your Fitness Pal on your phone motivates you, then fantastic, use it. But it's just finding something that resonates with you personally to keep you in the game, shall we say.
So I've found, and I've had periods when I've had a trainer and not had a trainer. I've gone back to a trainer, and I swear by having a trainer. One, because It enforces the discipline, and two, they vary your workout routines. Because I think when I was going on my own, I was tending to do the same stuff day in, day out when I was in the gym, and getting somebody
So a trainer would actually discipline you perhaps to do other things.
to do other things, but also teach you how to do the other things, so you don't
But
end
also
up with
you
a
delegate
put out
as well.
back,
You don't have to
yeah.
think about what your workout is going to be. It's
Yeah.
designed by somebody else, so it makes it more automatic, which is exactly what we want to do to make something a habit.
Right.
I think that and you said that earlier, right? That it's not so much about what we do, but about what we don't do. If you're not ready to see a therapist, if you're not comfortable with that, if you don't want to start a process, but there are things that you can stop doing and then replace for others that are healthier. For example, if you're consuming news on your phone constantly, that it doesn't matter if you can put that, again, intelligent people intellectualize their way into everything. I need this for my business. No, you are consuming repetitive news that are severely toxic. And instead of doing that, you could be listening to a podcast. The CEO Diary, for example, has a great range of all kinds of topics. And he has a very entertaining way to deliver all kinds of subjects. It doesn't have to be psychology, but he makes it very personal. So it is very thought-provoking. And that is psychologically healthy, unlike the news that is just anxiety and depression provoking, right?
So we know that the first form of external entertainment was the wireless radio, and that was in 1972, I think, something like that. But what I'm saying is we've advanced so quickly in technology that we don't even go to the toilet without our phone, right? We don't even take 5 minutes break with our own thoughts to digest things. We've got this thing in front of us, even when we go to the toilet. Now, that was, for me, it was amazing. My question to you is like, how much time should we set aside just to sit with our thoughts and just to process this sort of thing? Is there a set time that you would recommend, even if it's not meditation, just to take away all the external so that we can focus on?
There is, and I'll send it to you so you can share it with everybody, because I don't remember the steps. They're not coming to me, but there is an active meditation that is a 7-step instruction that will help you create intentionality in your day. And 7 steps meditation can take you 3 minutes. You really don't have to spend that much time. What it does is that because it reminds you what your intentions for the day are, it reminds you that to be compassionate with yourself, to understand that other people are coming from their own experiences, and that is nothing to do with you, right? If someone is having a bad day, they might project that on you, but that is not your responsibility. You protect your energy, you protect the space. And what it does is that it sets you up to be intentionally who you want to be through that day. I think at the end, one of the steps is remember something that you need to get done by the end of the day. That one I find it very useful, because I'm the kind of person that don't want to say, I don't respond to my emails. It's just going to be so much. But I know that when I do, I just feel like that is a lift out of my shoulders. So if I tell myself in the morning through that active meditation that I am going to get through my emails today, you sort of remind yourself by 6 p.m. It's like, okay, I have to do this email thing because I promised myself that I will. It helps you with accountability, creates self-discipline, and then you do what you need to do, right? Instead of just having to having to think about how you want to be the next moment in the next meeting at night. Again, our brains are very good at making everything that possible automatically, right? I don't want to think about this. It needs to just be inbuilt in my routine, right? And active meditation gives that a framework, and it can take 5 minutes, really.
I started 5 years ago to meditate. What it does is, it frees up space.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to wrap up by sharing, the inbox here on the chat is just appreciation for both of you. I'm going to read one of many. Megan Lawson, one of our new members, who's the country manager for a sustainability company here. Thank you, Phil and Astrid, for the helpful sharing, and to all those that made this a great session. On that note, let's conclude today, and thank Dr. Astrid and Phil. Thank you very much. We went a little over, but I think it was really worth it, and I think we were inspired challenged, and in some cases,